Ibrahim Traoré discovers hidden cameras in his room, and the Mastermind surprises. Chapter 1. The Discovery Colonel. Ibrahim Traoré felt uneasy as he entered his presidential office in Ouagadougou. Something wasn't right. After 18 months as Burkina Faso's leader following the military coup, he'd developed a sixth sense for danger. His eyes scanned the room, looking for anything out of place among the mahogany furniture and national flag displayed behind his desk. He began his morning routine, reviewing security reports from the northern regions where jihadist insurgents remained active. As he reached for a pen, his hand brushed the underside of his desk drawer. His fingers detected something unusual, a small bump where the surface should be smooth. Bending down to examine it, Traoré discovered a tiny lens expertly concealed within the wood grain. A surveillance camera, no larger than a button. "Marcel!" he called. His head of security appeared immediately. "Sir? Sweep the room, now!" Traoré's voice remained controlled, but Marcel recognized the gravity in his tone. For the next hour, Marcel and two security technicians methodically inspected every inch of the presidential office. Their findings were disturbing. 3 miniature cameras and 2 listening devices, all state-of-the-art, hidden in the light fixtures, behind a painting of Thomas Sankara and beneath the conference table. "How long?" Traoré asked. The lead technician, a man named Ouedraogo, examined one of the devices. Based on the dust patterns, at least 2 weeks, possibly longer. Traoré processed this silently. 2 weeks. During that time, he had hosted Russian military advisors, Chinese mining representatives, and American diplomats. All those supposedly private negotiations were potentially compromised. "What about my residence?" he asked. Marcel and Ouedraogo exchanged glances. "We should check immediately, sir." The presidential residence, a colonial-era building in the government district, yielded even more troubling results. 5 additional devices were discovered, including cameras in Traoré's bedroom and personal study. The most sophisticated device was hidden in the air conditioning vent above his bed, a high-resolution camera with infrared capabilities for night recording. "The technology is advanced," Ouedraogo explained. "This is intelligence-grade equipment, likely American, Chinese, or European." Traoré paced the room, mind racing. His privacy had been completely compromised. The strategic vulnerability was staggering, especially for a leader who had pivoted away from Western influence toward Russian and Chinese partnerships. "We need to find the source," he said. "But quietly. If we alert whoever planted these, they'll know we've discovered them." "What's your plan, sir?" Marcel asked. "Leave 2 cameras active, one in the office, one here. Feed them misinformation. Replace the others with decoys while we investigate." That night, alone in his bedroom, Traoré sat fully clothed on the edge of his bed, staring at the vent where the camera had been found. They had left that one operational, but now he knew it was there. The watchers being watched. On his secure phone, thoroughly checked for tampering, he called his former commander from Military Academy, now retired outside the capital. "General, I need your advice," Traoré said. "Someone has been watching me." "The Americans? The French?" the retired general asked. "That's what I need to determine." "Trust no one, Ibrahim. Power creates enemies everywhere." After ending the call, Traoré stood at his window, looking out at the lights of Ouagadougou. He had seized power, promising to free his country from foreign influence. Now unseen eyes followed his every move, recorded his every word. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "The cameras are just the beginning. Watch your back, Colonel." Traoré felt a chill. Someone wanted him to know he was being watched. This wasn't just surveillance, it was psychological warfare. His mind raced through potential enemies. The French, bitter about his expulsion of their troops. The Americans, concerned about his Russian ties. His own officers, some resentful of his rapid rise. Tomorrow, the investigation would begin in earnest. Tonight, he would sleep in a guest room that had been swept for devices, a pistol under his pillow. He would hunt for whoever had invaded his privacy, and when he found them, they would pay. As he left his bedroom, he turned back toward the hidden camera and allowed himself a cold smile, sending a silent message to whoever was watching. They had made a serious mistake. Dawn broke over Ouagadougou as Traoré convened an emergency meeting in a secure location, a small hunting lodge outside the capital that had been thoroughly swept for surveillance devices. Present were only 3 people he still trusted: Marcel, his head of security; Colonel Zita, his military chief of staff; and Dr. Fatoumata Ngom, a cybersecurity expert recently returned from Silicon Valley. "The devices are military-grade," Dr. Ngom explained, examining one camera under a microscope. "Manufactured by Northfield Systems, an American company that primarily supplies intelligence agencies." "American spies?" Colonel Zita suggested, expression darkening. "Not necessarily," Dr. Ngom replied. "These can be purchased through intermediaries. Many intelligence services use them precisely because they're difficult to trace." Traoré studied the schematics showing the locations of all devices discovered. "The placement shows intimate knowledge of my movements. This was done by someone with internal access." "We need to trace the transmission signals," Marcel suggested. "Find where the data was being sent." "Already working on it," Dr. Ngom nodded. "The signals were encrypted and bounced through multiple servers, but I've identified the initial relay point was a diplomatic compound in the city." "Which one?" Traoré demanded. "That's the interesting part," she replied. "The Chinese embassy." The revelation hung in the air. Just 2 weeks earlier, Traoré had signed preliminary agreements giving Chinese companies preferential access to Burkina Faso's manganese deposits, while publicly maintaining his strategic partnership with Russia. "It could be misdirection," Colonel Zita cautioned, "routing through the Chinese compound to cast suspicion on them." "Possible," Dr. Ngom agreed. "I'll keep tracing the signal path. My guess is it bounces to multiple destinations." Traoré paced the small room. "We need to control information. No one outside this room knows about the devices. Investigate everyone with access to my office and residence." "That's a substantial list," Marcel pointed out. "Narrow it by capability and opportunity," Traoré instructed. "Focus on anyone with technical expertise and access to my private spaces." As the meeting concluded, Traoré's secure phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Looking for me in all the wrong places, Colonel. Perhaps check with your Russian friends about loyalty." Traoré showed the message to the others. "They're watching us now, or they have someone in my security detail." "I'll conduct personal security checks on every member of your team," Marcel promised. "Change all routines immediately," Colonel Zita advised. "Different sleeping locations, varied meeting schedules, new security protocols." Back in Ouagadougou that afternoon, Traoré maintained his official schedule, attending a ceremony to inaugurate a hospital wing funded by Chinese aid. The Chinese ambassador was present, all smiles and handshakes, speaking about the all-weather friendship between their nations. Traoré studied the diplomat carefully, looking for any hint of knowledge about the surveillance operation. The ambassador's demeanor revealed nothing unusual. That evening, following Dr. Ngom's security protocols, Traoré staged a meeting in his office with the Russian military attaché, deliberately discussing concerns about Chinese influence within range of the surveillance device they had left active. He then retired to a safe house on the city outskirts. Marcel arrived at midnight with preliminary findings. "We've identified a potential breach. 2 weeks ago, a maintenance team accessed your residence to repair the air conditioning. One technician spent 17 minutes alone in your bedroom. Do we have identification? He used credentials for a legitimate contractor, but facial recognition shows discrepancy. We're tracking his movements now." At 3 a.m., Traoré's secure phone buzzed once more. "Your acting skills need work, Colonel. The Russians aren't your problem. Look closer to home." The message sender was toying with him, demonstrating not just surveillance capabilities, but real-time monitoring of his countermeasures. This wasn't just about gathering intelligence, but about destabilizing him. As dawn approached, Dr. Ngom called with a breakthrough. The signal bounces through the Chinese embassy, then to a server in Dubai, and finally to an endpoint in Paris. Not French government servers, but a private facility. "French intelligence using cutouts?" Traoré suggested. "Possibly, or someone wanting us to think it's the French. I'm still digging." Traoré ended the call and watched the sun rise over the capital. The circle of trust around him had never been smaller. If the surveillance was this sophisticated, who else might be compromised? His phone buzzed with a final message. "Time is running out. Tomorrow everyone will see what the cameras have captured. Unless we meet. National Library noon. Come alone. The trap was being set. But after years of military service, Traoré knew sometimes the only way to find the spider was to step deliberately into its web. The National Library of Burkina Faso stood as a relic of the colonial era. Its once grand facade now weathered by decades of Saharan dust, few people visited anymore, making it an ideal location for a clandestine meeting. Despite Marcel's objections, Traoré had insisted on following the messenger's instructions, though he'd allowed a security perimeter to be established discreetly around the building. Inside, the air was still and musty, filtered sunlight streaming through tall windows. The main reading room was empty except for an elderly librarian dozing at his desk, and a solitary figure sitting at a corner table, facing away from the entrance. As Traoré approached, the figure stood and turned. It was a woman in her 40s, elegantly dressed in a tailored suit, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her complexion suggested mixed heritage, perhaps European and African. Something about her struck Traoré as familiar, though he was certain they had never met. "Colonel Traoré," she said with a slight accent he couldn't quite place. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit." "You've been sending me messages," he stated, remaining standing. "Who are you?" A smile played at the corners of her mouth. "My name is Anika Diallo, and yes, I orchestrated the surveillance operation in your residence." The admission was so brazen that for a moment Traoré was speechless. When he recovered, anger flashed across his face. "You realize I could have you arrested immediately." "You could," she acknowledged calmly. "But then you'd never learn why 3 global powers are suddenly so interested in your small, landlocked country." Despite himself, Traoré was intrigued. He sat down opposite her. "Explain." Anika placed a tablet on the table between them. "What I'm about to show you will change your understanding of Burkina Faso's strategic importance." She activated the screen, revealing geological survey maps. "These are not the official surveys released by your government or any mining company. These are the actual findings from an independent analysis conducted 3 years ago, then suppressed." Traoré studied the maps with growing astonishment. According to these surveys, Burkina Faso possessed rare earth mineral deposits far more extensive than publicly acknowledged, elements crucial for advanced technology, renewable energy, and military applications. "If these are accurate—" "They are," Anika interrupted. "Your country sits on one of the largest undeveloped deposits of neodymium and dysprosium in the world, essential components for everything from wind turbines to missile guidance systems. How did you get this information?" Anika's expression grew serious. "I worked for your predecessor's regime as a minerals assessment consultant. When these findings came in, he made a critical mistake. He tried to auction off the information to the highest bidder among the great powers." The implications were staggering. The coup that had brought Traoré to power, which he had believed was internally motivated by frustration with security failures, might have been backed by foreign interests seeking to control these resources. "And the surveillance?" he asked. "Insurance," she replied simply. "I needed to understand your intentions, whether you knew about the deposits, who you planned to align with." "You're not working alone," Traoré observed. Anika nodded. "I represent a consortium of African investors and technology companies. We believe these resources should benefit Africa first, not be extracted for pennies on the dollar by foreign powers." She slid a dossier across the table. Inside were profiles of his inner circle, including Marcel and Colonel Zita, with detailed assessments of their allegiances. "Marcel is feeding information to French intelligence. Zita is being courted by Russian military contractors with promises of weapons systems Burkina Faso could never afford." Traoré leafed through the files, unnerved by their thoroughness. "And what do you want from me?" "Partnership," Anika said simply. "Don't give away your country's future to any foreign power. Work with African investors to develop these resources sustainably, with technology transfer and infrastructure development that will actually benefit your people." "Why should I trust you?" Traoré asked. Anika's expression softened slightly. "Because I could have sold this information to any of the powers circling Burkina Faso. Instead, I'm offering it to you directly." She stood, gathering her belongings. "You have 48 hours to consider my proposal. After that, I can't guarantee this information won't find its way to others with ambitions to replace you. As she turned to leave, Traoré called after her. The cameras. Were they really necessary? Annika paused. In this game, Colonel, information is the only true currency. I needed to know exactly what the Russians, Americans, and Chinese were offering you before I made my approach. After she departed, Traoré remained in the library, reviewing the materials she had left. If the geological surveys were accurate, they changed everything. His country wasn't just another poor, landlocked nation fighting terrorism and poverty. It was sitting on a fortune that could transform its future. But the path forward was treacherous. The great powers wouldn't simply step aside for African self-determination. And within his own government, figures like Marcel and Zita were already compromised. As Traoré finally left the library, stepping into the harsh sunlight, his phone buzzed with a new message from Marcel. Urgent. Russian delegation has requested emergency meeting tonight. Americans have called twice. Chinese ambassador waiting at the palace. Something's happening. The countdown had begun. Traoré surveyed the faces around the conference table in the underground bunker of the presidential palace, the only location he now fully trusted to be secure. Present were Dr. Ngom, Dr. Aminata Kone, Burkina Faso's leading geologist, and Souleymane Diop, a finance minister with international resource contract experience. The surveys appear authentic, Dr. Kone confirmed, looking up from Annika's documents. If accurate, we're talking about rare earth deposits potentially worth over $50 billion at current market prices. The room fell silent as the figure hung in the air. For a country with an annual GDP of barely $17 billion, it was a transformative amount. And the surveillance systems? Traoré asked Dr. Ngom. Extremely sophisticated, the tech expert replied. The cameras transmitted to multiple endpoints, not just the French location. We've identified servers in Dubai, Singapore, and Frankfurt. Can we confirm her identity? Traoré asked. Partially, Dr. Ngom replied. There is an Annika Diallo who worked as a consultant for the previous government. French-Senegalese dual citizen, educated at École Polytechnique and MIT. Her expertise is in mineral resource assessment. And this African investment consortium she claims to represent? More difficult to verify. There are several Pan-African investment groups focused on resource development, but none have publicly acknowledged any interest in Burkina Faso's rare earth potential. Traoré paced the room, mind racing through scenarios. The timing is suspicious. The surveillance operation, followed by these revelations, just as all three major powers are intensifying their diplomatic efforts. Colonel, Diop ventured, what if Diallo is actually working for one of the foreign powers, creating an elaborate deception to push you toward a particular decision? It was a possibility Traoré had considered. The world of geopolitics and resource competition was filled with elaborate feints and misdirection. We need to test her claims, he decided. Dr. Kone, how quickly can you verify these geological surveys independently? With the right equipment and access to the sites, 2 weeks minimum. Too long, Traoré muttered. We need to move now. His phone vibrated. A message from the presidential guard. The Russian delegation had arrived for their requested emergency meeting. The Americans would be arriving within the hour. The Chinese ambassador was already waiting. Here's what we're going to do, Traoré said, his decision made. Contact this Annika Diallo. Tell her I'm interested but require proof of her consortium's capabilities. Diop, prepare 2 versions of our standard mining rights agreement, one with terms favoring Burkina Faso, the other more balanced. And the foreign delegations waiting upstairs? Dr. Ngom asked. I'll meet them all, separately. Tell them I'm considering final offers from all interested parties before making a decision on our strategic alignment. The Russian envoy, a hard-faced man named Petrov, accompanied by technical specialists, made his pitch directly. Russia would increase its military presence in Burkina Faso, providing advanced weapons systems and training in exchange for exclusive mining rights in the northern province. They made no mention of rare earth elements. Your country faces serious security threats, Colonel, Petrov emphasized. We offer not just investment, but protection. 2 hours later, the American delegation presented a completely different approach. Their focus was on economic development, infrastructure projects, educational initiatives, and preferential trade access to American markets. Their mining proposal was framed as a partnership, with Burkina Faso maintaining majority ownership. "We understand you're hearing competing offers," Ambassador Williams acknowledged, "but consider the long-term relationship. America seeks partners in Africa, not dependents." The Chinese ambassador, last to present, offered the most comprehensive package: immediate infrastructure development, military equipment with no political conditions, and a non-interference pledge regarding Burkina Faso's internal affairs. Their mining proposal, however, gave Chinese companies exclusive rights for 40 years, with fixed royalty rates well below market standards. Throughout all three meetings, Traoré revealed nothing about his newfound knowledge of the rare earth deposit. None of the foreign representatives mentioned them explicitly, though all three proposals included rights to all mineral resources discovered in their designated areas. By nightfall, Traoré had received a message from Annika, requesting a second meeting, this time at her hotel. Against all advice, he agreed, but insisted on proper security protocols. The suite at Ouagadougou's finest hotel was elegant but not ostentatious. Annika greeted him with the same composed demeanor as before, but now she was not alone. With her was an older man who introduced himself as Emmanuel Osei, chairman of the Pan-African Resource Development Initiative. "Colonel Traoré," Osei said, his Ghanaian accent distinct, "we appreciate your caution. In your position, I would be equally skeptical." The man handed Traoré a folder containing financial statements, technical capacity assessments, and letters of intent from manufacturing companies across Africa interested in establishing high-tech production facilities in Burkina Faso. "Our proposal is fundamentally different," Osei explained. "Not just extraction of resources, but creation of an entire value chain, from mining to processing to manufacturing finished components, all in Africa, with Burkina Faso as the hub." Hydraid. Dawn broke over Ouagadougou as Traoré stood on the balcony of the presidential palace, watching the city come to life. Street vendors set up their stalls, students walked to school in neat uniforms, and military patrols maintained their vigilant presence. It appeared ordinary, yet in the past 72 hours, his understanding of his country's position in global affairs had transformed completely. Inside, his most trusted advisors waited in the secure conference room. Marcel and Colonel Zita had been excluded from this inner circle after Annika's revelations about their foreign connections, though neither had been confronted directly yet. "The Pan-African Consortium's credentials check out," Dr. Ngom reported. "Their financial backing is substantial, primarily from Nigeria's sovereign wealth fund and private technology investors from across the continent." "And their technical proposal?" Traoré asked Dr. Kone. "Ambitious but feasible," the geologist replied. "They've developed similar, smaller-scale operations in Tanzania and Namibia. Their extraction methods prioritize environmental sustainability, and their processing technology is cutting-edge." Finance Minister Diop looked less convinced. "The economic package is unprecedented. No predatory loans like the Chinese model. No political strings like the American approach. No security entanglements like the Russian offer. But the implementation timeline seems optimistic." Traoré nodded, considering these assessments. "And what have our foreign friends been doing since our meetings?" Dr. Ngom's expression darkened. "All three have intensified their intelligence activities. We've detected attempted breaches of our government networks from Russian, American, and Chinese sources. Diplomatic cables we've intercepted indicate they're all aware of competing offers and are preparing to escalate their proposals." "They still don't know about the rare earth deposits?" "It appears not. Their focus remains on conventional resources and strategic positioning." Traoré made his decision. "Prepare for a cabinet meeting at noon. After that, I'll address the nation." Oidur. When the full cabinet assembled, including Marcel and Zita, Traoré observed their reactions carefully as he revealed the information about the rare earth deposits and outlined the competing proposals from foreign powers and the Pan-African Consortium. Marcel maintained a professional demeanor, though his eyes betrayed concern when Traoré mentioned French intelligence activities. Zita appeared genuinely surprised by the revelations about the mineral wealth, suggesting he hadn't been fully briefed by his Russian contacts. Our nation stands at a crossroads, Traoré told them. The decisions we make in the coming days will determine Burkina Faso's trajectory for generations. We can continue the pattern of allowing foreign powers to extract our resources while leaving our people in poverty, or we can chart a new course. By early evening, Traoré addressed the nation in a televised broadcast from Independence Square. Thousands gathered to hear him speak, with millions more watching across the country. "People of Burkina Faso," he began, "today I share news that will change our country's future. Our land holds treasures more valuable than gold, minerals essential for the technologies of tomorrow. For too long, Africa's resources have enriched others, while our own people struggle. Today, that pattern ends." He announced the formation of a new National Resource Development Agency that would partner with the Pan-African Consortium to develop the rare earth deposits. The plan included processing facilities within Burkina Faso's borders, a technical training institute to prepare Burkinabe workers for specialized roles, and strict environmental protections. "We will not close our doors to international cooperation," he emphasized. "But that cooperation must be on terms that benefit our people first. No more unfair contracts, no more extractive relationships that leave nothing behind but empty minds and broken promises." As expected, the international reaction was swift. The American State Department expressed concerns about resource nationalism. Russian state media criticized the naive rejection of security partnerships. Chinese officials described the decision as regrettable and hinted at reconsidering infrastructure projects. 3 days later, Traoré received a request for a meeting from an unexpected source: the ambassadors of Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa, representing the African Union. When they arrived at the presidential palace, they brought surprising news. "The AU Council fully supports your resource development approach," Ghana's ambassador stated. "In fact, we're preparing a continent-wide framework based on your model, prioritizing African development of African resources." That evening, as Traoré reviewed security protocols for the new mining regions with Dr. Ngom, his phone buzzed with a message from a now familiar number. "Congratulations on your choice, Colonel. The cameras served their purpose, showing you who your real friends and enemies are. Africa's future is watching." In his office, now thoroughly swept of all surveillance devices, Traoré smiled. The hidden cameras that had invaded his privacy had ultimately revealed something more valuable than his personal habits or diplomatic conversations. They had exposed the web of foreign interests surrounding his country and illuminated a path toward genuine independence. Looking out at the Ouagadougou skyline, he envisioned a future where the city would be lined with technical institutes and manufacturing centers, rather than foreign military bases or extractive industry outposts. The surveillance had ended, but Burkina Faso's journey toward true sovereignty had just begun. Marcel knocked and entered with a security update. "Sir, we've completed the reorganization of your security detail. All personnel have been vetted, and new protocols are in place." Traoré nodded, studying his security chief carefully. "And your connections to French intelligence?" Marcel stiffened, then his shoulders slumped slightly. "How long have you known?" "Long enough. The question is whether your primary loyalty is to Burkina Faso or to France." After a long pause, Marcel answered, "To you, sir, and through you to our country. My mistake was believing those interests could align with France's. I see now they cannot." "Then help me build something new," Traoré said. "Something that belongs to us, not to foreign powers." As Marcel departed, Traoré returned to the geological surveys spread across his desk. The hidden cameras had been planted to exploit vulnerability, but instead had revealed opportunity. The mastermind behind them had indeed surprised him, not with threats or blackmail, but with a vision of African self-determination that resonated with his deepest aspirations for his country.